Hello, I'd like to welcome you to session 12, where we will complete our discussion on politics and we'll cover the central idea in these institutions, with also a little mention about the media. Now, we've been talking about the problems that so many people are experiencing today. I'd like to ask, how can anyone really believe that such things could be morally right when our societies have children all over the world who are going to bed, going to sleep, homeless and hungry every night? Some say that thousands of children around the world are actually starving to death every single day. At the same time, there are some people who are so filled with greed that they do not want to have to do without even a few of the many millions or even billions that they have been profiting. While all of this is going on, the rest of us seem so filled with apathy or are so caught up in our own troubles that as a result almost nothing is really being done to change the conditions that are still causing these problems each and every day all over the world. What suffering would those ultra-wealthy people, some of whom are so filled with greed, endure if they had to live on a few million or a few billion less in profits this year or any year, when that's compared to the suffering day after day, year after year, of so many children and adults of all ages? If you're a person who can easily justify to yourself a society which allows such inequity, then you should take a long, hard look at your values and your priorities, or in your next incarnation, you may very well be one of those homeless who goes to sleep hungry every night. Think about it. Whether you agree or disagree with what has been said here, you should be reminded that the law, as you sow, so shall you reap, is a karmic law that applies not only to each of us as individuals, but to its entire countries and societies. If the people of a society or a country allow the leaders of that society or country to oppress or even to ignore those who are unable to help themselves, and by that I mean the children, the elderly, the ill, the weak, the homeless, the jobless, those in poverty, and those without hope, then the people of that society cannot escape the responsibility for their inaction. And they, as a society, will pay for the error of such apathy as certainly, if not as severely, as will those who are more directly responsible. Why do you think it's been said that the love of money is the root of all evil? If you are not a believer in such things as karma, as described here, then watch carefully what takes place in the world over the next 10 to 20 years or so. What do you think is being referred to in the videos of this series that talk about the fact that the world has entered a long, dark tunnel, a time of great difficulty and strife? We, the people of this world, are no longer about to enter that tunnel. We crossed that threshold on September 11, 2001. In spite of that tragedy, the great majority of the people did not seem to understand the message. Neither did they understand when joblessness, foreclosures, and finally the recent worldwide financial crisis of 2008 came upon us. You can tell they didn't understand because no significant changes have yet been made. As a result of this lack of significant change, there is more that is still to come, and much of what is ahead is likely to be even worse. Be thankful that there is light waiting for us when we finally reach the end of that long, dark tunnel. Because of this serious matter of responsibility, the people of a society or country, yes, even the people of a planet, must insist that politics actually be the fine and noble profession that it was always intended to be. A profession which calls out to those selfless, dedicated individuals who deeply desire to have and to live in and to serve in a society and on a planet that puts the well-being of all its people first and foremost. Perhaps now you can understand why so very few people are willing to talk or write about such things. They are quickly dismissed as radicals, when in fact they may simply be reasonably well-informed persons who want with all their hearts for their society to fulfill its potential to serve all the people well instead of just a small percentage. Such things are not easy to speak about, they're not easy to hear, but the time has come when the people of this planet must open their eyes and ears, put apathy aside, and insist on real changes, positive changes in their politics and in their politicians, in their society, even in their government if necessary, and yes, even throughout their entire planet, in order to avoid the alternative of continuing as we are now to go in the same dangerous direction at the same devastating speed. If these positive changes are not begun soon, we may wait too long, and the damage being done to our minds and our hearts, our people and our planet may become irreparable. We cannot afford to wait that long. I don't believe God will allow us to wait that long. If there are poor or homeless or hungry or ill or any persons anywhere in your society or country who are without hope, then you and those around you would be wise to give these problems very serious consideration. Every possible attempt should be made to take whatever steps may be necessary to bring about a resolution to these very serious problems. That is, if you believe in the truth of the universal karmic law that states, as you sow, so shall you reap. Otherwise, you and your children, or your children, as well as others in your society who are doing nothing to bring about needed change, and even our entire planet, will be paying off that karmic debt for a long, long time to come. Payment, in fact, as previously stated, has already begun. And before everything is resolved, there will be very few on this planet who will remain untouched. It is something you should consider very seriously. I hope you will do so. As indicated previously, there is at least one central idea, or purpose, that is behind each of the four institutions of religion, science, philosophy, and politics. Perhaps you may know others, but the one that will be considered here is this. All of these institutions were created for the purpose of serving humankind. Each one, if used in a manner that utilizes its higher intended nature, is meant to help human beings to live up to their full potential, or at least to make sure that they have the opportunity to make the right life decisions that can bring about the fulfillment of that potential. We are all agents of free will, however, and as such, we are not required to always do what is or what seems to be best for us, regardless of how illogical our actual choices may seem to others. Sometimes taking a path that may not be the highest path, and making decisions that are not the wisest we could make, and suffering as a result, and hopefully thereby learning from the experience, sometimes may be the only ways that some of us will move forward on life's path and accomplish the goals that we've come here in this incarnation to accomplish. The ideal means of accomplishing these goals is to always do the right or the highest thing in any given situation. Obviously, that does not always happen, but we should at least have the opportunity to make the right, meaning the highest, choice in every such situation. Religion, science, philosophy, and politics, in their highest form, should help to make available respectively the inspiration, the insight or knowledge, the mindset, and the society, among other things, that will be more likely to provide those needed opportunities. In addition to this, these institutions should also be increasing the odds favorably for us, so that when those decision-making times do come, the right decisions will be made a far greater percentage of the time than they currently are being done today. As a result, humankind cannot help but be lifted up. If any one of these institutions is not helping humankind by lifting us up, then changes should be made to bring about that help, that uplifting from the institution that is deficient, using whatever means may be required to accomplish that extremely important task, so that all four, religion, science, philosophy, and politics, will properly fulfill their intended purpose for all of humankind. Excuse me. In our modern world, there has come into being a fifth and very important institution upon which the people have become increasingly dependent as a source of information on current events within their society and around the world. That institution, of course, is the media, especially the news media. Traditionally, the news media has consisted of a large number of independent entities in the United States and around the world. The most traditional news media over the span of many years has been the print media. More recently, however, there has been an increasingly greater use by the public of visual media from television. More recently still have come a combination of written and visual media from the internet, often supplied by those professional journalists who have ventured there from more traditional print and television media sources. It is also true that the internet media takes its information in large part also from private individuals without journalistic training and, sadly, too often, without traditional journalistic principles. Many of them have only their own private agenda and may have inadequate or inaccurate information, or even more sadly may be fast and loose with the so-called facts that they publish. The public is increasing its use of the internet as a source of information at a pace that continues to rise. These facts, combined with the fact that too many of the traditional print and television media, formerly with very high journalistic standards, have, over a period of time, moved from being independent information or news organizations to being nothing more than an arm of the private corporate structure, and these media are concerned only with profits derived from controversy, which they often create themselves, and sensationalism, which they also often create themselves, as a pretense that they're providing accurate news and information to the people whom this media no longer actually serve. Serving the people by providing accurate news information has long been the higher, more noble purpose that the worldwide news media of every kind was intended to fulfill. Instead, the news media, described in less than glowing terms above, too often serves the corporate structure and the institution of politics and those who inhabit its extreme positions that are not favorable to working families and the poor and less fortunate among us. This media does so in order to present a particular point of view, as just indicated, that is more favorable to the corporate structure and less favorable to the majority of the people, especially working families. Obviously, these statements have been oversimplified in order to make a point, but nevertheless, the statements are accurate and they do make the needed point. Excuse me. Partially as a result of this, many people have made the decision to use sources on the internet to get their news information, but many of the sources are no more than opinions rather than facts learned through good investigative journalism. This too is oversimplified, but still makes the needed point. The result of all that has been described here is that the people no longer have reliable sources of good, solid facts, but instead have sources, many of which have been designed to confuse and divide the people in order to make them more easily persuaded to accept this point of view or that point of view as desired in order to accomplish the goal or goals of keeping the people, the countries, and the planet divided into opposing camps, thereby making worthwhile significant change virtually impossible. The old adage, divide and conquer, or even more so, divide and rule, is being used very effectively in the United States, and you may rest assured in many other countries around the world. When you view the media from any source, please do so judiciously. Thank you for watching video number 12 of this series that looks at life from a more spiritual point of view. In session number 13, we'll begin to consider the different guideposts that have been put out there to help you along your way on life's path. I encourage you to watch. Thank you very much.